Korea. North Korea has been carrying out missile tests. I had this fantastic article by Mel Gurvtov at Counterpunch, and then we're reprinting it today at antiwar.com, titled Dissecting North Korea's Missile Test. And so late last month, North Korea launched two short range ballistic missiles from railways over the Sea of Japan. And this comes with a slew of other North Korean missile tests in the past year. I think it was like January or February, they were carrying out submarine launched cruise missile tests, and then they have since carried out test of new anti-aircraft missiles, long-range cruise missiles, and then they claim a hypersonic missile, although I really have my doubts about this, and it's just being repeated everywhere, and it seems to just be one of those things that fits everybody's narrative. North Korea lights everybody thinking they have big-ass badass weapons, and the U.S. wants a reason to drive more of their hypersonic missile technology, and so saying, well, North Korea has it, is a very good way to get Americans to throw their money at a problem. So what Mel does is he goes and he looks at the history of North Korean weapons tests and what they've been used for. And of course, there has been a substantial increase in technology for what the past 20 years or what 20, 30 years now that North Korea has been carrying out these weapon tests. And so it's not like there's no value whatsoever in North Korea isn't developing a stronger and stronger deterrent with these missile tests. But also there's another reason for it, and that's to put North Korea in the news cycle and push other countries, mainly the US and China and South Korea, to deal with North Korea and essentially its strat concessions. And so Mel speculates that China, on the China issue this time, North Korea is pushing for more aid, thinking that, you know, if China wants them to be quiet, they carry out a bunch of missile tests, China will give them a bunch of aid to be quiet. And then on the US side, I think there's quite a few things. One thing I don't think he highlights this in the article, South Korea wants attention, but he also says, you know, to highlight the double standards and undermine Biden's North Korea policy, which has essentially been to put North Korea on the back burner. And so this certainly puts North Korea in the news cycle, and it is going to force the Biden administration to have some kind of confrontation with the Korea issue and to figure out some kind of way to move forward on it. And so I don't think what North Korea is attempting to signal here is that they want war. I think that's the last thing Korea wants. I think they want to make sure that they have enough of a deterrent capability that they feel that they could inflict enough pain on the US and its allies, including Guam, Japan, South Korea, to prevent the United States from attacking North Korea, because the North Koreans are not insane or crazy or suicidal. They don't all want to die in a fiery doom, and so they just don't have the military capability to even wipe out like 1/10 or 5% of the U.S. military. And so, yeah, they could inflict a lot of pain on U.S. and our allies and kill a hell of a lot of people. That is not in dispute by anyone. But at the same time, they can't win a war against the United States, and the North Koreans definitely know that. And so this is not necessarily a war-provoking move. It's looking to get taunts out of the United States and to move away from essentially North Korea's position in the world as an isolated nuclear power. And I think to at least get sanctions lifted so they could have more trade with South Korea and China at the very least, and probably Russia too. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. At the end, Mel makes the absolute perfect point that, with all this, the Biden administration to look forward, not with a military response, not with more weapons tests, anything provocative or hostile, but rather to move forward with a offer of diplomacy, or just to ignore it. And maybe if you don't want to offer North Korea diplomacy in response for this, ignore it for a couple months and then try to go back to the diplomacy table. Now, there's this good important article. I think it's in the I forget what, Stars and Stripes maybe, that is South Korea and the president, Moon Jae-in, is making a last-ditch effort to formally end the Korean War. And this is something that he's been trying to get done for essentially the last 4 years. I think he came to power like 4.5 years ago now, with a huge mandate, and really tried to get something done with North Korea in that time, and was consistently undermined not only by Hots in South Korea, but mainly by the United States and the insanity and reckless and stupid Trump policy that at times extended an olive branch and offered what seemed to be meaningful offers of negotiation and potential to move forward in a way with North Korea. But then at the last minute, of course, was Trump allowed himself to be seduced by the war hawks like John Bolton and offer absolutely nothing to the North Koreans. And so this has really undermined the Moon Jae-in administration. He will exit office come March and cannot be reelected, the way the Korean constitution works. And so he is sending some of his top advisors to the United States, I guess, to try to make sure, his main concern is making sure that he has room in America to get this done. It's not that the North Koreans, the Kims, are just so insane that you can't deal with the people. The issue is that the Biden administration is so insane that they'll undermine anything good that the South Koreans try to get done with the North. Kim Jong-un's sister, who is now kind of a spokesperson for the government, Kim Yo-jong, said that the North Koreans were encouraged by what they're hearing from South Korea. However, I don't think they have any particular amount of optimism anything is going to get done. It doesn't seem like they were jumping at any kind of, we think this is a real major shift in U.S. and Korean policy or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that about covers it. Again, I'm not expecting anything to get done, but it is important when you see around the world the places where people are trying to create more peace, and it's the U.S. getting in the way of that. Just so interesting. Now, one other thing, and this kind of comes with the North Korea piece and pointing out the U.S. hypocrisy. They carry out their weapons tests, the U.S. condemns it, and then when the U.S. carries out our own weapons tests, it's just applauded, and it's a great, sanitary, hey, we're just showing off the new cool technology that we have. Anyways, the U.S. is attempting, or will be, I think already now, tested the precision strike missile, which has been developed by Lockheed Martin. They're going to test it at a range of 499 kilometers to 500 kilometers, and it's going to have 200 longer range than the current generation of the Army's artillery rocket. They already tested this thing in May, and it flew 400 kilometers. All right, so, the U.S. has carried out these two missile tests twice, but of course, every time I read an article on North Korea, I don't see, the U.S. was carrying out their own missile tests, and actually, South Korea has been carrying out missile tests recently as well. But anyways, this missile that they're using the code name of a Prism P, lowercase r, capital S, capital M, is what they're calling it, and the Army is going to buy at least 2,400 of them from Lockheed Martin, and they want to have them in the field by 2023. I think these are going to be used in the Army as part of their build-up to try to be more in the territory and the plan to confront China, getting a part of that good old grift. Now, this article from Defense One has some other interesting notes in it, like talking about arms companies such as General Atomics, worried about losing part of their market share in the Pentagon here as they transition away from Afghanistan and Iraq and more to the Pacific. And so they had a recent trade show where the General Dynamics showed their Gray Eagle drones, which are just Predator drones for the Army, with different kinds of radar, missiles, and stuff like that, and they're trying to show the army that, hey, these could be useful in the South China Sea, around Taiwan or something like that, to try to sink Chinese ships, try to locate Chinese ships, playing radar, or to hit small islands with missiles, that kind of thing. And so we're seeing a major shift not only in the Pentagon but in the U.S. military industrial complex with it, as they try to develop technology to make sure that they could continue to get on the Pentagon grift and make sure that they're getting that money. Now, there's also another thing in this article that I think is actually even more important than that, and that is the Pentagon is looking to offer our allies more deferred payment plans than in the past. In the past, we are able to offer our allies, we'll pay for it, right? So, you could have these Patriot missiles, we'll pay for it, but by the end of the year, or by a year from, I guess, year to date probably, you had to pay back 100% of the cost. Now the Pentagon and the State Department are looking at opportunities of how they can spread the payments out, a loan type situation, beyond the delivery of a piece of equipment. And so they're going to make it so that they could sell Iraq a bunch of F-35s. They'll pay for them 20 years down the road. The American people will never get paid. Lockheed Martin will get paid right away, and eventually the American people will be left on the hook for that payment, I'm sure. And so this sounds like an absolute disaster, and I really hope that if this ends up in a bill or something, we could take some time to oppose it, although it may just be the kind of thing that happens behind the scenes.